Hello everyone and welcome back. Today, as you see laid before you, we're going to be working with some fur. First of all, I don't know where this fur came from, like what specific store, because luckily one of my friends had some extra leftover yellow fur and was like, hey, do you want it? Because I saw on Twitter that you're suffering trying to find yellow fur when you need so little of it. And I was like, please. Please. Luckily, this fur is exactly what I needed. It is the perfect shade of yellow. It is a long pile, whatever. I'm no expert about fur, but I have made a few things with it. But basically means that it's a long fur. This will not be my first rodeo working with fur, so I just thought I'd just kind of share some things that I've learned combined with like what you're supposed to do with fur. But again, I don't make like fur suits. That's a little out of my reach. Not that I really have a need to make one, but I have made, if you've seen my Ray Undead costume, I did the fur collar on that. If you saw my NekoCon videos, then you've seen my Cure Chocolat tail, which is also a long pile. I'm gonna keep mixing those words up, it's fine. And then I've also done gloves for Mina, which I haven't worn because she was supposed to be worn at Katsu, but that didn't happen, unfortunately. So without further ado, let's get started. So the first thing that you're gonna wanna do is you're gonna wanna figure out which way you want your fur to go on your costume. Now for what I'm doing is I'm just making a trim for a hood, so I don't need that much. I just have to figure out which way do I want the fur to be sticking out. Alright, and once you've got your fur all laid out, what you'll want to do is take your measuring tape and measure how long you need it to be. Now for my hood is about 35 inches long, so I'm going to make it 36 to account for seam allowance and stretch and all that, because things always go horribly wrong. It's always easier to cut off excess than it is to add excess, especially with fur. Fur is a pain in the butt. So then you're going to take a Sharpie and just mark down where you want. Since this is the inside, nobody will see it. Go ahead, mark it up as much as you want. And I know that I want a 5-inch long, or wide rather. Take your X-Acto knife. You don't want to take scissors. Don't use scissors. Scissors will blunt the fur. If you use an X-Acto knife, you actually get to go through the fabric without cutting any of the fur. Now you will get like fur fallout, like that's just gonna happen. You're gonna have a floor full of fur. Believe me, after Chocolat, I had a sea of red all over my floor. This is gonna give me a ton of yellow. But basically, all you're going to want to do is you're going to stick it in and then just kind of pull and separate. And you're just going to kind of go in a jagged motion, just like this. And separate. And you see how the fur isn't cut at all. It isn't a blunt cut. That'll give your fur a more natural look. And there we go. Now again, there's going to be fallout, so like if you pull, you're going to get fur. but it allows your fur to be nice and natural and less chunky, because if you're going to take scissors to it, you're going to end up blunting a lot of the fur, and you don't want that. Now what would make this more difficult is if you have to match the piece. So like with my chocolate tail, you have to like make sure that your fur is all going in the same direction. Now see, I'm just doing this around the edge of a hood, so it doesn't really matter because this is just going to be folded over on itself, versus again my chocolate tail where I would basically end up having to have a separate piece and have the fur all going in the right direction, which believe me, I messed up on. I do have one pattern piece of a tail where the fur is going in the wrong direction. Luckily, I had plenty of fur to make up for it, to make sure that I actually had the fur going in the right direction. So remember to rotate your pattern accordingly. Okay, so I've started pinning already, so I'm going to show you what I'm doing. Ignore all the threads, it doesn't matter because that's all going to go on the inside. But basically I'm starting with the inside of the hood because I'm going to have this flip over to the outside, and that way it covers up everything. It'll just also make it easier in the long run, because I won't have to pull this out as much as the top side, and as you see I'm covered in fur. But you're gonna just take it and you're gonna kind of try to smooth the fur out as much as possible, and then you're just gonna lay it down and then pin into place. And you're gonna go all the way around the hood, or whatever you're making. In my case, it's a hood. So I ended up having too much on there, but I'm gonna leave it until after I'm done flipping it over. Okay, so I've gotten my sewing machine all set up. I've switched out my needle for a really thick one. This is a heavy-duty needle. It's just a plain old heavy-duty needle. I just wanted to be safe while going through fur, because fur is quite thick. Otherwise, I would use a totally different needle to sew through the cotton. And then I'm going to give myself a little bit of a seam allowance and go very slowly. And there we go. Now see how none of the fur is underneath the stitching? Unfortunately, that's only going to happen one time. I've got to flip it over and then attach it to the other side, and then that's where the hard part comes in. But basically this is what you're going to want at the end of the day, is you're going to want it to be nice and flat and smooth and not have any of the fur tucked under the stitching. Alright, so I have it finally pinned down. I'm probably doing this wrong because this is, again, I'm not a professional and I'm not an expert, but I do have it pinned down. This is also me being very, very lazy and not hiding my raw edges, but it's fine. It's fine. No one's gonna look at this up close besides me. So I have it all pinned down, and now I'm just gonna go very, very slowly, pulling the fur out of my way as I sew this side down. I did struggle because I have a mixed ball pin thing, so I tried to pick as many of the ones that actually have a dark color and not like the yellow ones, because the yellow, who knew this? Like, the yellow blends in with yellow fur. Things that I should know, but apparently had to think about. So let's do this. so that is the fur sewed on. Next is the very tedious part of you have to pull the fur out from the stitching because otherwise it won't lay quite right. Although I think I did a pretty decent job of pulling the fur out of the way for the most part, so I should be able to just brush it out, which you're gonna need to brush your fur frequently. It's going to shed everywhere like it is all over this beautiful black fabric. It's not beautiful, it's just cotton. And then on this side you'll also have to do the same thing, and you'll just have to pull the fur right out from the stitches as best as possible. Look at that. Already that looks so much better. So let's start doing that. That it's all done. I clearly didn't pull that out. It's fine, because when you brush it, there it is, you brush it, it covers it up. So the last little tidbit that I have for sewing faux fur and all that is you're gonna want to constantly brush it, because no matter what, it's going to shed all the time. So always have a comb or brush on you and have a lint roller, because look, there's still fur on it. There's still fur. It's everywhere. But that's basically it. I'm gonna leave this open down here because I'm lazy. That's my only excuse. Don't be like me, kids. Be more professional. But this is for fun. I'm cosplaying Vocaloid in the year of our Lord 2018, and it's gonna be a good time. I'm wearing fake fur at the end of May in North Carolina. I'm going to die. And with that, I'll see you guys next time.